Part 1. It started on a Thursday. At Iron Body Fitness, just a few blocks from my apartment in downtown Austin. That's where I first noticed him. He was tall, broad shoulders, sharp jawline, messy dark hair under a backwards cap. And those eyes, always looking. I don't usually pay attention to guys at the gym. I'm not there for that. I go in, do my routine, earbuds and mind in my own world. But him? He was hard to ignore. I first caught him watching me near the free weights. He wasn't subtle about it either. I glance up and there he was, pretending to stretch, eyes flicking my way. At first, I thought it was just a coincidence, but it kept happening. Every time I looked up, he was already looking at me, and then it got strange. After I finished my workout, I headed for the exit. I always take the back stairs, away from the crowded front desk. I just like quiet. But that day, I heard footsteps behind me. Heavy, measured. Following, I turned slightly. It was him. Cap still on. Tank top clinging to his chest. Eyes fixed on me, but not in a creepy way. More like curious. Or maybe even nervous. I paused at the side door, pretending to check my phone. He slowed to, hovering just a few feet away. I waited for him to pass. He didn't. Instead, he said, "Hey." That's it. Just, "Hey." I blinked, pulled out one earbud. Yeah. He scratched the back of his neck, like he was trying to figure out how to say something. "You here often?" I let out a soft laugh. "Seriously? That's your opener." He smiled, kind of sheepish. "Yeah, kinda lame. I know. But I've seen you here a few times and thought I should say hi." There was something disarming about him. Something not quite like the usual gym guys. He wasn't cocky. Wasn't flexing. Just standing there, open. I nodded slowly. "Well, hi then." He grinned. "I'm Ryan." "Eli," I replied. We shook hands. His grip was warm. Strong. He didn't let go right away. And neither did I. Then he said something I didn't expect. "I'm not trying to be weird, man. I've been trying to work up the nerve for weeks. To say hi. To talk to you," he said. "Because you always look like you're deep in your own world. And you're kind of intimidating." That made me laugh. "Me? Intimidating?" He nodded. "You have this serious face when you're lifting, like you're solving world problems or something." I shrugged. "Maybe I am." Ryan smiled again. He had dimples. "Damn it. Anyway," he continued, "if you're not busy, you want to grab a smoothie next door? My treat." I hesitated. Not because I didn't want to, but because guys like him don't usually ask guys like me out. Not in Texas. Not in my experience. So I asked, "You do this often?" "What? Ask other guys out for smoothies?" He looked straight at me. His expression changed. Softened. "No, just this one guy." I didn't even realize I was smiling until I said, "Okay, let's go." We walked out together, into the heat of the early evening. Austin was buzzing like it always does. Bikes whirring past, music from open bars, cicadas in the trees. But all I could focus on was the fact that this stranger I'd only stared at from across the gym floor was now beside me, talking, laughing, and asking questions about my life like he genuinely cared. Somewhere between protein powder jokes and teasing me about my deadlift form. I felt my guard slipping, and as we sat on the bench outside the smoothie shop, cold drinks in hand, sweat still drying, Ryan leaned back, eyes on the orange-pink sky. Then he turned to me and said, "You ever get that feeling like something's about to change?" I nodded slowly. "Yeah, right now." And I meant it, because I didn't know it then. But that moment, that stranger, that stupid smoothie date, it was the start of everything. If you've ever met someone at the most unexpected time, and your whole world shifted, You'll want to hear this story. So stick around, because this gets complicated real fast. If you've ever met someone when you least expected it, and one look changed everything, then you already know this story isn't just about a gym crush. It's about secrets, timing, and the kind of connection you can't fake. So if you're ready for a love story with real tension, real moments, and real heart, hit that subscribe button. Don't miss what happens next. Because trust me, this only gets deeper and more dangerous. We didn't exchange numbers that night. I know, weird, right? We just finished our smoothies, talked a bit longer, laughed at something dumb, and then parted ways like we'd run into each other 100 times before. See you around, he said. And that was it. I walked home with this strange flutter in my chest. Not nerves, not even excitement. Just a quiet, low warmth. Like something had cracked open inside me, and light was starting to leak through. But the next day at the gym, he wasn't there. Or the day after that. I found myself scanning the room more than I wanted to admit, listening for that familiar voice, wondering if I should have asked for his number first. I even Googled him. Ryan Jim Austin Iron Body. Like that would somehow spit out a magical answer. It didn't. And that's when I realized something unsettling. I didn't know him. Not really. No last name. No social media. No way to reach him. Just the smile, a stupid protein smoothie, and 1,000 questions. By the 4th day, I tried to let it go. People disappear. Austin's big. It's not like he owed me anything. But I couldn't stop thinking about what he said. You ever get that feeling like something's about to change? Yeah, I had. And now I felt stupid for it. Then Friday came. And there he was. I was wiping down the rower when he walked in, wearing a gray hoodie, earbuds tucked in, head down like nothing had happened. But the second our eyes met, everything paused. He smiled, nervous again, but warmer this time, like he was glad I hadn't vanished too. He came over after a few minutes, waiting until I was off the machine. Hey! Same soft voice, same intensity in his eyes. I pulled my earbuds out. Hey, thought you disappeared. I almost did, he said with a tight laugh. Had to take care of some stuff. Family. He didn't elaborate, and something in his tone told me not to press. Instead, I asked, "You sticking around this time?" He nodded. "Yeah, if you are." There was again that low hum under his words. Not flirting exactly, but something. Charged. We didn't work out together. Just nearby, I caught him watching me in the mirror once or twice. And this time, I didn't look away. Afterward, we stood by the water fountains, dripping sweat. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "You hungry?" he asked. I raised a brow. "What happened to smoothies?" He grinned. "I figured if I want a second hangout, I should level up. Is this a date?" He looked at me, serious for half a second, then shrugged. "Do you want it to be?" That silence between us stretched. My heart wasn't racing. It was steady, heavy, like it knew something I didn't. "Yeah," I said. "I think I do." We ended up at a little Mexican place a few blocks down. It was loud, full of neon, but Ryan found us a quiet corner. He asked about my job, my family, my favorite movies. I asked him about his too, but he dodged, changed subjects. It didn't feel like a red flag at first. Maybe he was just private or shy, but then I noticed something strange. When his phone buzzed, he glanced at it and immediately flipped it over, face down. Twice, I couldn't help but ask, "Everything okay?" He nodded too quickly. "Yeah, just my brother. He's protective." "Of you?" "No," Ryan said, then paused. "Of his image?" He laughed without humor. Long story. I didn't push, but I did file that away. Because something didn't feel quite right. We said goodbye outside the restaurant. He didn't try to kiss me, didn't even hug me, But just before walking away, he said, "You're easy to talk to." And that's not something I say a lot. I watched him go, and just like the first night, I had this strange feeling again, like something big had just happened. But I wouldn't know what it was until it was too late. That night, I checked Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Still no sign of him. It was like Ryan didn't exist online at all. And in today's world, that's almost impossible. So the next morning, I went back to the gym early, and I asked the girl at the front desk, "Hey, that guy, Ryan, do you know his last name?" She looked up from her computer, frowned. "There's no Ryan registered here." My stomach dropped. I forced a laugh. "He's here all the time. He's tall, wears a backwards cap, dark hair." She shook her head slowly. "I've worked here for 2 years. I think I'd remember someone like that." I stared at her, heart pounding. But all I could manage was, "Right, yeah, never mind." I stepped outside, phone in hand, brain spinning. Who the hell was he? And why did it suddenly feel like I wasn't the one watching him, but the one being watched? I didn't sleep much that night. My mind kept circling back to the girl at the desk. No Ryan registered here. Maybe he used a fake name or a friend's membership. But why? Why go through all that just to talk to me? I tried to shake it off. Told myself I was overthinking. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and it was growing fast. The next few days were normal on the outside. Work, emails, dinner alone. But I kept glancing at my phone, checking to see if he'd somehow found me. He hadn't. Then, Sunday afternoon, I saw him again. Not at the gym, not downtown, at Zilker Park. I was walking back from a coffee cart when I spotted him near the edge of the field, leaning against a tree, wearing sunglasses and that same backwards cap. And he wasn't alone. There was a kid with him, a boy, maybe 7 or 8, throwing a football, laughing, calling him Uncle Ryan. My heart stopped. Uncle? I froze halfway across the grass, watching him catch the football and toss it back gently. It was the first time I'd seen Ryan look truly relaxed. No guarded smiles, no nervous posture, just real. I didn't know whether to approach. But then he looked up, saw me, and something shifted in his eyes. Not fear, not guilt, just something heavy. He gave the kid a quick high five and jogged over to me. "Eli," he said, a little breathless. "I didn't expect to see you here." I could say the same. I tried to keep my voice light, but my brain was racing. This man who didn't exist at my gym was suddenly playing uncle in the park. He followed my gaze to the kid. "My nephew, that's Caleb. He seems to like you." "Yeah, well, he doesn't know better yet." He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Can we walk?" he asked. I nodded. We moved slowly along the sidewalk that bordered the trees. "I know you're wondering," he said after a moment. "About the gym, about everything." I didn't say anything, just let him talk. "I don't have a membership," he admitted. "My buddy does. He let me borrow his card while he's out of town. I've been crashing at his place while things cool off." Cool off. I repeated. Ryan looked at me, expression unreadable. Then finally, my ex's kind of nightmare. I wasn't sure what I expected. "But not that. You live with her?" "I live with her," he corrected. "But I left 2 weeks ago. Moved out. Needed space. She didn't take it well." He paused and added, "She's the reason I've been dodging online stuff. She tracks everything. Instagram, Venmo, my phone." I stared at him. It all sounded intense, a little dramatic, but something in his voice, the quiet way he said it, made me believe him. "Why tell me all this?" I asked. "You don't even really know me." He stopped walking, turned to face me. "I want to. I know it's messy, but I'm trying to get out of it, trying to start over." The wind picked up a little, sweeping leaves across the sidewalk. Ryan shoved his hands into his hoodie pocket, eyes on mine. "Can I see you again?" he asked. "Like, properly. Dinner. Somewhere that isn't sweating under fluorescent lights." I could have said no. I probably should have. But I didn't. Something about him pulled me in, even with all the mess. Maybe because of it. "Okay," I said softly. "One dinner." He grinned. Relief flooded his face. Then he said, "I'll text you this time. Real number. Promise." We exchanged phones. His contact popped up. "Ryan, not a serial killer, probably." I snorted. "I'll hold you to that, probably." He walked back to the field, where Caleb was now lying in the grass. I stood there for a moment, watching them, trying to ignore the voice in my head whispering, "This isn't simple. You're in deeper than you think." But when my phone buzzed 5 minutes later with a text, "Tuesday at 7, I'll pick you up," I smiled anyway, because for now, I wanted to believe this could be something real, even if it came wrapped in secrets, and a past he hadn't fully escaped from. Part 2. Tuesday came faster than I expected. I changed shirts 3 times before settling on something simple. Clean jeans, black tee, nothing too try-hard. But my hand still shook when I reached for the door. At exactly 6:59, my phone buzzed. "I'm outside. No serial killer vibes yet. You'll see." I laughed, then opened the front door. Ryan was leaning against an old silver Jeep, one hand in his pocket, the other holding a bouquet of protein bars. "Flowers felt too romantic," he said with a grin. "Figured you'd appreciate gym humor." I stared at the bundle in his hand. "Is that peanut butter flavor?" He nodded proudly. "Only the best for first dates." I shook my head and laughed. But deep down, it hit me harder than flowers ever could. It was thoughtful, funny, weird, just like him. The ride to the restaurant was calm, almost too calm. But I noticed things. He kept his phone in the center console, face down, again. The radio was on low, some indie band humming through the silence, and he glanced at me every few seconds, like he was checking to see if I was still there, still real. "Do you always get this quiet before dinner?" I asked. He smirked. "Only when I really don't want to mess something up." My chest tightened at that, because I felt it too. This weird pressure, like we were both holding on to something fragile. The place he picked was a rooftop pizza spot near South Congress. Strings of lights above us, picnic-style tables, and the smell of garlic and basil everywhere. We got a corner booth, talked about movies, his hatred for olives, my fear of heights, and somewhere between the second slice and a shared dessert, I stopped overthinking. I just looked at him, really looked, and I saw more than charm. I saw something broken, something held together with jokes and smiles and backward caps. And for some reason, I didn't want to fix it. I just wanted to sit with it. With him. "You never said what you do," I asked as we finished the last bites. Ryan wiped his hands and leaned back. "I build custom bikes, mostly motorcycles, sometimes scooters. Depends on client." I blinked. "That's kind of badass." He shrugged. "It's dirty work. Loud. Satisfying. Then, softer, helps me stay out of my head." He didn't say what was in his head, but I was starting to understand that he was used to keeping things buried. He paid, despite my protests, and we drove back under sky full of stars. The air was warmer than usual. One of those summer nights that wraps around you and makes the world feel smaller. We pulled up outside my building. Ryan stayed in the car. Didn't turn the engine off. "Thanks for tonight," I said. He looked over. "I should be thanking you. You gave me something I haven't had in a while." "What's that?" He paused. "Peace." Silence. He reached for something in the console, then stopped. "Can I tell you something?" "Yeah." He looked straight ahead, like the words were hard to pull out. "I'm not used to this. Letting people in, especially guys." I tilted my head. "You mean you're not out?" He nodded. Not really. Not to my family. My ex knows, but she uses it against me. My throat tightened. Ryan, it's not pity I want, he said quickly. It's just, I want you to know what you're dealing with. I'm still figuring this out. Still scared sometimes. I sat with that. All of it. The mess. The weight. The honesty. Then I opened the car door slowly. Get out. He blinked. What? Come upstairs. He stared at me like I just solved a puzzle he didn't realize he was stuck in. And then he turned the engine off. We didn't kiss. We didn't even touch. We just sat on my couch, shoulders barely touching, watching a movie neither of us paid attention to. At one point, he leaned his head back and whispered, I'm really glad I followed you out of the gym that day. I turned to him, smiled. Yeah, me too. But even in that warmth, even in the safety of that quiet night, I could feel something pulsing beneath the surface. He had secrets, and sooner or later, they were going to rise. He didn't text me the next morning, and I hated how much that messed with me. I kept checking my phone like an idiot, refreshing messages, opening Instagram and checking his story. Nothing. Was last night a mistake? Because it hadn't felt like one. Not when his hand had touched mine on the roof. Not when he looked at me like I was more than a stranger from the gym. But now silence, and that silence was louder than anything. I went to the gym that afternoon. I didn't plan to. I was exhausted, emotionally and physically, but something in me needed to see if he'd show up. He didn't. I was mid-set on the bench press when I heard a voice behind me. Yo, you're pushing hard today. I turned. It was Malik. I hadn't seen him in a few days, and today he looked different, like he hadn't slept much either. Trying to forget someone? He smirked, but his eyes didn't match the tone. I tried to laugh it off. You know me, just chasing gains. He grabbed a towel, threw it over his shoulder, and leaned closer. Or maybe chasing a guy who disappeared after opening up to you on a rooftop. My heart stuttered. So he knew what that night was. He straightened up. Look, I didn't mean to ghost. I freaked out. I noticed. I said more bitterly than I intended. He winced. Yeah, I deserve that. The rest of the gym faded out for a second. All I could focus on was the guy in front of me. The guy who had leaned in close, opened up, shared something real, then vanished. I'm not good at this, he said finally, his voice quieter. Being seen like that, feeling like, I don't know, vulnerable. I nodded. Yeah, me either. We stood there for a moment, tension thick between us. Want to grab a smoothie or something? Malik asked. I raised an eyebrow. Now! He gave a lopsided smile. Unless you want to keep punishing your triceps. I tossed my towel into the bin. Let's go. We ended up at this little juice place not far from the gym. Quiet. Chill. No loud music, no flashing screens. Just two stools and the awkward air of two guys pretending like they hadn't kissed with their eyes days earlier. We sat with our drinks, silence stretching too long. Finally, Malik said, Last time I liked someone like this, it didn't end well. I didn't push, but I didn't look away either. He continued. He was older, I was stupid, and I ended up thinking I was a problem. I swallowed. It hit a nerve. I've been there, I said. Different situation, same aftermath. He looked at me. For real this time. I want to do this different, he whispered. Do what? You and me, whatever this is. I didn't answer right away, because I didn't know what this was either. But I wanted to find out. I reached across the table, fingers brushing his wrist. I'm willing if you are. He nodded, and for the first time in days, that ache in my chest softened, just a little. But later that night, as I scrolled my phone alone in my room, something strange happened. A message from a number I didn't recognize. You don't know who he really is. No name, no context, just those words. I stared at it for a long time, and suddenly that ache came roaring back. I didn't sleep much that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him, Nico, leaning in, breathing close, holding that invisible line between almost and too far. My phone lit up just past 3 a.m. It was a DM. Can't sleep either. Sorry if I cross a line tonight. I stared at it. Did he mean the look in the hallway? The way his voice dropped? Or the way he said my name like it had weight? You didn't cross anything. I typed it, deleted it, typed again. We're good. Sent. Next morning, I avoided the gym. Not because I didn't want to see him, but because I wanted to too much. And that scared me. Around 10 a.m., as I walked out of the coffee shop with my order, I nearly dropped it. Nico was outside, leaning against the hood of his car, looking at me. No gym bag. No coincidence. Just him, waiting. You go to the gym, he said. No smile, just calm. His sunglasses hid his eyes, but his tone was softer than usual. Didn't feel like it today. I replied, trying to walk past. He matched my pace. You okay? I stopped, looked at him, and maybe I shouldn't have said it, but I did. Are you? He blinked, then nodded. Slow, honest, almost exposed. I don't usually do this. I tilted my head. Do what? He looked off to the side. Care if someone disappears. And just like that, he turned and walked away. The rest of the day, I was useless. At work, I kept checking the door. At home, I checked my DMs. Nothing. Until night, 9:47 p.m. A single message from Nico. There's something I want to tell you, but I need to know if I can trust you first. My heart kicked. What did that mean? Was he in trouble? Or was this about us? I stared at the message for a long time, then replied, You can. I didn't get a reply for hours, until 1:12 a.m. Meet me tomorrow, after my shift. There's a place I go when I need to think. It's not far. You'll understand when you see it. He sent a pin. A trailhead near the river. What was he going to tell me? Why out there? And why did I feel like this was the moment everything was about to change? I showed up the next evening, wearing something simple, trying not to feel like I was dressing for a date. But my heart was thudding like it was prom night. He was already there, sitting on the edge of a wooden railing, overlooking the river bend, wearing a black hoodie, sleeves pushed up, a pair of headphones around his neck. He didn't turn when I approached, just said, This is where I go when I don't want to be found. I swallowed. So why bring me? He looked at me then, eyes clear, raw, because maybe I want to be found this time. We stood there, quiet wind, soft light, the world shrinking down to the breath between us. Then he spoke. There's something about me people don't know, something I never say out loud. I didn't move, didn't blink, then say it to me. I won't run. He exhaled, like he'd been holding that breath his entire life. And he said, I think about guys more than I should, more than I tell anyone. Silence. Then I nodded, because I knew that feeling, that invisible war between truth and survival. But I also knew something else. That night, standing by the river, he hadn't just told me a secret. He'd handed me a piece of himself, one he hadn't given anyone else. And I wasn't going to let it fall. Want to know what happens when two guarded hearts meet in a place where truth finally breathes? Stick with me, because in next, Nico opens the door a little wider, and I walk through it, not knowing what I'll find on the other side. Part 3. I was wrong about Sunday being the hard part. Monday hit like a truck, not because of the gym, but because I didn't know what I was supposed to do with us, with me and him. It had only been 2 days since that ride in his car, but my head was still full of his voice, his eyes, the quiet look he gave me before I left. It was like he wanted to say something, but didn't. Or maybe I imagined all of it. God, I was going crazy. I opened my locker at the gym that afternoon, my hand trembling like I hadn't slept all weekend. I hadn't. He wasn't there when I walked in, and I hated the weird disappointment that hit me like a wave. I did my warm-up, ate half a protein bar I didn't even want, and just as I was about to leave, I saw him, Ryan, walking in from the side door, drenched in sunlight, gray hoodie, basketball shorts, looking right at me, like we were picking up from Friday night. My chest did that stupid flutter thing again. I hated it, and I loved it. He didn't say anything, just walked past me with a nod and a small smile. I nodded back. Then he circled back. "Hey," he said, barely loud enough for me to hear over the music. "You staying long?" I shrugged, heart racing. Probably not, just finishing shoulders. He hesitated, then stepped closer. "You want to grab something after?" Like it was the most casual thing in the world. And suddenly I wasn't standing in a gym. I was standing on a ledge, ready to say yes or run. I said yes. The rest of my workout passed in a blur. I couldn't tell you what I lifted, what I benched, what I did for cool down. I just remember Ryan doing his own thing, but looking at me every so often. Like we were in on something now. A secret. A maybe. We ended up at a smoothie place downtown. Nothing fancy. Plastic cups, 2 loud blenders, gym rats everywhere. But sitting across from him in that corner booth, it felt weirdly intimate. Like we weren't supposed to be there. But we were. And neither of us wanted to leave. "Why me?" I finally asked. The question had been stuck in my throat since the parking lot. "Why'd you follow me out that night?" Ryan looked down into his cup, stirred it with the straw, then glanced back at me, eyes steady. "Because you looked like you were pretending not to drown." I blinked. That wasn't what I expected. "And I know that look," he added, "'cause I've worn it for years." We sat in silence, not uncomfortable, just quiet, heavy. "Are you out?" I asked softly. Ryan smiled like it was both funny and sad. To some people, not to others. To myself, since I was 19. He took a slow sip. "What about you?" I shook my head, never said out loud before. Then added, "Until now." His hand brushed against mine on the table. Not a grab, just a graze. But it was the first time anyone had touched me like that. On purpose, knowing exactly what it meant. I felt my whole chest cave in. "You okay?" Ryan asked. I nodded, and maybe for the first time in years, I actually meant it. We left the smoothie bar just before sunset. Austin Golden Hour poured across the pavement. And for 1 second, just one, I let myself imagine what it would be like to hold his hand in public. Not a secret, not a maybe, just real. But that second didn't last long, because as we reached his car, I noticed something across the street. A man staring at us from beside a dark SUV. No smile, no movement, just watching. Ryan noticed too. His hand immediately pulled away from mine. His face hardened. "Get in," he said quickly, voice sharp, low. And just like that, the moment shattered. I didn't go to the gym the next morning. Didn't run, didn't eat, just laid there, staring at the ceiling fan slowly spinning above me. All I could hear was my own voice from last night, saying way too much, saying things I wasn't even ready to admit out loud. And I kept replaying his silence, that quiet, stunned pause after I told him I didn't just want a one-night thing. God, why did I say that? He had every chance to walk away. And maybe he already had. I finally sat up and grabbed my phone. No texts, no calls, nothing from Mason. Not even a "you good." It hurt more than I expected, and I hated how fast I got used to having him close. How I went from avoiding him at the gym to wondering where he slept last night. I took a deep breath and forced myself to get up, showered, got dressed, went outside. The sky was overcast. It felt heavier than usual. At the coffee shop, I took my usual seat in the corner, trying to read, but every sentence blurred. My head was buzzing. That's when I heard a voice I didn't expect. "Hey!" I looked up. Mason. He was standing there, hoodie up, hands in his pockets, eyes darting like he didn't know if this was a mistake. I froze. My heart hit the back of my throat. "Mind if I sit?" he asked. I nodded slowly. He sat across from me. The table felt smaller now. For a moment, we just looked at each other. No words. Just something raw and unspoken hanging between us. Then Mason broke the silence. "About last night," my chest tightened. "I didn't walk out because I didn't care," he said quietly. "I walked out because I cared too much, and I didn't know what the hell to do with that." I blinked. The words sank in slowly, like rain seeping into dry ground. "I've never done this," he continued. "I've never felt this, whatever this is. Not with a guy. Not with anyone like this." My throat tightened. "You didn't do anything wrong," he said. "You were honest. I didn't know how to be." I stared down at the table. His words were hitting me like little jolts. Part of me wanted to grab his hand. Another part didn't want to scare him. "So, why are you here?" I finally asked, barely above a whisper. Mason let out a breath. "Because I couldn't stop thinking about you. Because I didn't sleep at all. Because I know I'm probably screwing this up, but I'm still here." Silence. I looked up. His eyes were glossy. Not crying, just holding everything in. I nodded slowly. "Okay," I said. "Okay." "Yeah," I said, softer. "We can figure this out." Slowly. Mason exhaled. A tiny smile broke through. "Thanks for not giving up on me." I shrugged, trying to play it cool. "Well, you did follow me out of gym in the rain." I smirked. He laughed quietly. His smile, it hit me harder than it should have. I think that's when I knew. This wasn't going to be easy, but it wasn't over. Not even close. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I didn't want to, but because every time I closed my eyes, I saw the look on Jace's face. That raw vulnerability, like a wound had been opened right in front of me, and I couldn't pretend I didn't see it. I kept turning over what he said, how he spoke about his dad, about being treated like he wasn't enough. And then that whisper, "You make it quieter." It echoed in my chest like a soft alarm I couldn't shut off. The sun had barely risen when I checked my phone again. Nothing from him. I wanted to text first. I did, but something told me to wait, to give him room. Instead, I drove to the gym, not because I wanted to work out, but because it was the only place that felt connected to him. I stared at the treadmill he always used, the mirror he always avoided, the spot near the weights where he finally opened up. He wasn't there. Not today. I left after 10 minutes. Didn't even break a sweat. But as I walked back to my car, I saw him, leaning against my car, hood up over his hair, head down like he was trying not to look obvious. But he saw me, and when our eyes met, it felt like a silent thunderstorm passed between us. "Hey," he said quietly. I swallowed. "Hey." He glanced around. "Can we talk?" I unlocked the car. "Get in." We sat in silence for a few beats. His leg was bouncing. I noticed he was wearing the hoodie from that night, the one he offered me. "Sorry I disappeared," he said finally. "I didn't push. I figured you needed time." He exhaled. "I'm not used to someone seeing me like that." "Like what?" He turned to face me, scared. "Messed up." I didn't look away. "I don't see you as messed up, Jace. I see you as human." He blinked. Like that meant more than he expected. "You remember that night at the gym? When I followed you?" I nodded slowly. "I wasn't just curious," he said. "I was scared of how curious I was." That admission cracked something open inside me. You don't have to be scared of that anymore. He looked down. "It's not that easy." "I know." Silence settled between us again, but it didn't feel as heavy. It felt like it was making space for something else to grow. He turned his head toward me. Can we hang out tonight? Just no gym, no expectations. Just us. My chest tightened. Yeah, I like that. He reached for the car handle, but paused. I told my dad I was staying with a friend. I looked at him. Are you? He smiled just a little. Guess I am now. I watched him walk toward his car, and for the first time in days, I felt like we weren't running anymore. We were walking. Together. Part 4. It had been 2 days. 2 days since Chris kissed me. 2 days since he shut down completely after. I'd replayed the moment in my head 1,000 times. The way his lips trembled just before they met mine. The fear in his eyes. And how fast it all fell apart. I hadn't seen him at the gym since. No texts. No calls. Just silence. And that silence was screaming at me. I walked the treadmill without purpose, eyes scanning every corner, as if he might appear like a ghost through the locker room door. He didn't. Instead, I ran into Marcus. Not who I expected or wanted. Yo, he said, slapping my back a little too hard. You seen Chris? He hasn't returned my calls. I paused. No. You? He shook his head. Not since that night. I didn't ask which night. I already knew. Later that evening, I sat on my apartment balcony, the wind cool against my skin, trying to convince myself that maybe Chris just needed time. But when I opened my phone and saw the message, everything inside me tightened. I messed up. Meet me where we first talked. Midnight. Chris. No emoji, no punctuation. Just raw. Midnight couldn't come fast enough. I left early. Sat in my car with the engine off. The same parking lot where he first followed me out of the gym. Where everything started. Where everything almost ended. He arrived 10 minutes late. But he came. Chris stepped out of his car. Hoodie pulled up, eyes low. He looked smaller than I remembered. Or maybe just more vulnerable. He walked up, didn't speak for a full minute. Then, I haven't been honest with you, he said. I swallowed. I wanted to scream that I knew, but I stayed silent. Let him talk. I didn't mean to kiss you like that. Not out of nowhere. But I've been wanting to for a long time, and it scared the hell out of me. The wind picked up again. I folded my arms, trying not to shiver. Not from the cold, from his words. I grew up thinking I had to be one version of myself to survive, he continued. Strong, straight, stoic, all of it. And then you walked in and ruined that. There was a broken smile behind those words. I felt my throat tighten. You didn't mess up, Chris, I said quietly. You just felt something real. He looked away, jaw clenched. I don't know how to do this. I don't know who I am when I'm not pretending. I stepped closer, heart pounding. You don't have to have it all figured out. Just don't push me away. He looked at me again, and for the first time since the kiss, there was peace in his eyes, a glimmer of hope. I don't want to, he whispered. We stood there under the streetlight, two men trying to piece together what could be something real. No labels, no timeline, just honesty. Then he reached out and took my hand. And this time, he didn't let go. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him, Sawyer, standing there in the rain, soaked, hurt, looking at me like I'd just betrayed him. And maybe I had. It wasn't just about the kiss. It was everything I let build between us, only to slam the brakes the moment it got real. My phone buzzed. I'm sorry I left like that. I just needed to think. Sawyer. I stared at the screen. Typed, deleted, typed again. Can we talk? His reply came faster than I expected. Yeah, my place. Noon. It wasn't a rejection, but it wasn't warm either. I showed up early. He didn't answer the door right away. When he finally did, he looked tired. Not just physically, like something inside him had dimmed. He didn't say anything, just walked back inside, leaving the door open for me to follow. So I did. I sat on his couch while he stood across the room, arms folded, guard up. Look, I started. I know I handled that horribly, and I hate that I hurt you. His jaw flexed, but he didn't interrupt. I panicked. I didn't know what it meant, what we meant. I wasn't ready for that moment, but I'm ready now. I think I've been ready. I just didn't want to admit it. He let out a quiet breath, finally moved closer. You think, he asked softly, because when you kissed me and then walked away, that crushed something I didn't even know was breakable. I stood up, walked until we were face to face, close enough to feel the warmth between us again. I don't think anymore, Sawyer. I know. He blinked, swallowed. I could see the wall and his eyes begin to crack. Then show me, he whispered. So I did. I kissed him, not with fear, not with confusion, but with every bit of certainty I had. He kissed me back like he'd been waiting his whole life. We didn't rush. We didn't speak. We just existed in that space, in that moment. And when we finally pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine and whispered, I don't care what this is, as long as it's with you. We stayed like that for a long time, just breathing, heartbeats sinking. Two guys who met at a gym and now stood in something neither of us had a name for. But maybe that was the beginning of love. I didn't think waking up next to him would feel this natural, but it did. Sawyer's arm was draped across my waist, his breath warm on the back of my neck. Sunlight streamed through the curtain cracks, painting soft lines across his bare shoulder. For a second, I just watched him sleep, and I felt this strange ache, like I was scared to blink and lose this moment, because part of me still didn't believe it was real. He stirred, murmured something under his breath, then pressed his face against my shoulder. You're staring, he mumbled, eyes still closed. Yeah, I whispered, just trying to memorize this. His lips curved into a sleepy smile. I can stay like this all day, he said, but then his voice dropped a little. Unless you regret it? I turned to face him fully. Not even a little. And I meant it. But life outside that room didn't care how perfect things felt, because by noon, my phone was lighting up again. Texts, calls, from my brother. I stepped into the hallway to answer. Hey, what's going on? You back in town? He asked, his tone clipped. I ran into Sawyer at the grocery store yesterday. My stomach dropped. Sawyer hadn't mentioned anything. He seemed different, distant. You guys okay? I hesitated. Yeah, we're fine. Just stuff going on. Right, he said. Well, Mom's planning something next weekend. Wants us all there. Got it. I said quickly, I'll talk to her. I hung up and leaned against the wall, heart racing for no reason. Maybe I was afraid of how fast things were changing. Afraid the more real Sawyer and I became, the more risk we were walking into. When I came back into the room, Sawyer was sitting up, sheet wrapped around his waist, phone in hand, expression unreadable. Everything okay? I asked. He looked at me for a long beat, then nodded. Yeah, just thinking about us. I walked to him, took the phone from his hand, and laced my fingers through his. I'm scared too, I said quietly, but I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. His eyes softened. I've been waiting to hear that for a long time. We stayed like that for hours, not needing to move, not needing to label what we had. But the outside world was waiting, and something told me it wouldn't wait much longer. And just when things felt steady, the past came knocking. Part 5. We were back in the city, back to reality. The lake house already felt like a dream, too perfect, too untouched by the rest of our lives. Sawyer walked beside me, but there was this tension in his shoulders, a stiffness I hadn't seen before. Everything okay? I asked, unlocking my front door. He gave me a tight smile. Yeah, just not ready to deal with real life again. Same. We barely stepped inside when my phone buzzed. A text from Ben. Call me. It's about Sawyer. My stomach twisted. Why would my brother? How would he even know something? Sawyer was already in the kitchen, pulling 2 glasses from the cupboard. I stared at the message, then pocketed my phone. Later. Not now. But I didn't need to wait long, because 2 hours later, while Sawyer was in the shower, my front door knocked. Hard, fast, like the person on the other side was angry. I opened it. Ben. His jaw was clenched, eyes blazing. I tried calling you. I saw, I said calmly. What's going on? He stepped inside without waiting, lowered his voice. You really think he's not hiding something from you? I shut the door behind him, confused. Who? Sawyer. Ben nodded. You know who I ran into last week? At Mom's place. I shook my head slowly. His ex. That hit me like ice water. Ben crossed his arms. She didn't say much. Just asked if you and Sawyer were serious. Said she'd be back in town soon. And she looked smug. I couldn't speak. She said something else too, Ben added quietly. She said Sawyer's good at pretending he's over someone when he's not. The shower turned off. Ben glanced down the hall. I'm not trying to mess things up for you, man. But don't let your guard down just because it feels good. And then he left. I stood in the silence, heart pounding, thoughts racing. Was Sawyer really hiding something? Or was his past just catching up to him? He came out a few minutes later, towel around his waist, hair damp, skin flushed from the heat. I stared at him like I was seeing him for the first time, like I didn't know which version of him was real. He noticed. What's wrong? I wanted to ask him about her, but I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I said, can we talk? And when I said that, his eyes darkened like he already knew exactly what this was about. Because the past never stays buried, especially when it's knocking right at your front door. I didn't expect the silence in the car to hurt more than the shouting would have. We drove back toward the city in complete quiet, the rain hitting the windshield like it was trying to say all the things we couldn't. Caleb kept one hand on the wheel, the other fidgeting in his lap. He didn't look at me, not once. I stared out the window, but all I saw was the way his eyes had looked back at the lake, like he was about to break. You're mad, he said finally, voice low. I'm not, I replied, and it was true. I wasn't mad, just tired of being confused. I didn't lie to you, he added. I turned to him. No? Then what was that back there? My voice cracked on the last word. He gripped the steering wheel tighter. I panicked, okay? I wasn't expecting you to hear that. So I was supposed to be your secret again? No. He shook his head. I was going to tell her. I needed to figure out how. My heart felt raw, like it had been scraped against gravel. I'm not asking you to shout it from the rooftops, Caleb. I'm just asking you not to hide me. His jaw clenched. I've never wanted to hide you. We reached his apartment. He parked, but neither of us moved. Then, slowly he turned to me. I meant it when I said I wanted something real. You make me feel things I didn't even know I could. Then why does it feel like I'm always the one left standing in the dark? He didn't answer, not with words. He leaned forward, pressed his forehead to mine, and whispered, I'm sorry. I closed my eyes, feeling the warmth of his skin against mine. So close, but still not enough. We went upstairs, barely saying a word. The air between us was electric, charged with unsaid things, with tension we couldn't escape anymore. Inside his place, he poured 2 glasses of water, hands shaking slightly. I took mine but didn't drink. Why do you care so much what she thinks? I asked. He looked at me, and really looked at me this time. Because if I lose her, I lose my family. I lose everything I've known. And what about me? I asked, voice shaking. What do you lose if you lose me? The answer took too long to come, but when it did, it wasn't what I expected. Everything, he said quietly. And somehow, that only made it worse. We sat on the couch like strangers. The distance between us no longer physical, but something bigger, deeper. I set my glass down. I should go. He reached out, but stopped himself. I'll figure this out, he said. I swear I will. I nodded, but didn't believe him. Not fully. Because figuring it out meant choosing. And I wasn't sure I could handle not being the one he chose. I left his apartment that night with a heaviness I couldn't name. A storm was coming, outside and between us, and I wasn't sure we'd both survive it. He didn't say a word. Not when I looked at him. Not when I whispered, "Is this really happening?" A slow nod, his eyes holding everything mine were too scared to say. The door shut behind us, and for the first time since all of this started, it was just us. No Jim, no mirrors, no pretending. Just two guys who couldn't deny it anymore. He stood there, fidgeting, like he didn't know what to do with his hands. Like he was scared he'd break the moment. Or maybe me. "I thought about you every day," I said. His jaw clenched, and he crossed the room in 2 quick steps. "You're the first thing I think about when I wake up," he breathed, "and the last thing before I fall asleep." I didn't realize how much I needed to hear that until I felt myself shaking. Not from nerves, not from fear, but from the overwhelming relief of finally being seen. He touched my face gently, like I was something fragile, but I wasn't. I was his, and he was mine. No more guessing, no more stolen glances. He leaned in, closer, breathless, eyes wide, and when our lips met, it wasn't fireworks. It wasn't movie perfect. It was real. It was raw. It was us. We kissed like we were making up for lost time, like the gym was a lifetime ago, like we weren't scared anymore. And when we pulled apart, he laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it felt right. "I've been following you for weeks," he whispered. "I just didn't know how to catch up." I smiled, tugged him into another kiss, and this time, he didn't hesitate. That night, we didn't rush. We didn't plan. We just existed together. Hands tangled, bodies pressed, hearts racing. And when he finally fell asleep beside me, one arm draped across my chest, I realized something. The guy from the gym, the one who kept looking at me, then followed me out, he wasn't chasing a moment. He was finding home. And so was I,